Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, we are going into lesson 22, page 2. I hope I wrote that down. I did. Okay. So, lesson 22, page 2, it's going to be a little bit of an extension on the quotient rule that I began yesterday. You're all good now, Alyssa? Just to make sure that the sound is okay. Sometimes I forget to click unmute on my mic, so that would have been kind of a pain if it was on me the entire time. Okay, that's good. So, yeah, as far as today goes, it's going to be the same exact stuff we did yesterday. I'm going to focus more on questions like number 3, where the derivatives are a little bit more, I guess you could say, intense. Not difficult, because I know you guys all know how to multiply. I know you guys know the process, but putting 2 and 2 together can become complicated. So I'm going to do 4 and 5, and then we should be good for today and go out and enjoy the weather. That's all I can say. Well, that is good, Alyssa. I'm glad you checked it out. But yeah, it's going to be the same kind of stuff. These ones are going to be more focused around question number 3. So, anytime we're doing derivatives with multiplication or division, we have to follow the rules. So this one is the quotient rule. So I have been splitting the top and bottom up into 2 pieces. I've been calling the top f of x, and I've been calling the bottom g of x. So I have f of x is 4x to the 5th plus x squared plus 4. So I need to find the derivative of that, because that's what we're doing today. We're differentiating. So if I find the derivative, which is f prime x, I can bring the 5 out front. That's just going to be 20x to the 4th, since we're subtracting 1 away. I could bring the 2, multiply that out front, and it will just be 2x, and the 4 is going to disappear, because the 4 has x to the 0, so nothing exists when you go to do the derivative. As far as g of x goes, very similar. When you guys go to do the derivative, g prime x, we can bring the 2 out front, and we're going to have 10x, and then that negative 2 is going to disappear. So, very similar to product rule, which is what we did last week. We're going to do what I call the crisscross method, or the cross multiplying. So, the rule states that we multiply the first derivative by the first factor, or I'm sorry, the second factor. So I'm just going to write it all out. I have 20x to the 4th plus 2x times 5x squared minus 2. I'm also going to cross multiply the other side. I'm going to put the 10x out front, just because I like putting the single terms out front. And because this is quotient rule, after I cross multiply, I have to subtract those 2 values. So we have to figure out what those values are by distributing. There's just also one last step that we talked about yesterday. And actually, I'm going to do it in red just because it is the denominator. After you guys do your cross multiplying, the last part when you differentiate with the quotient rule was to take the denominator, which is 5x squared minus 2, and square it. So all I'm requesting from you guys on this homework is to simplify the top. That's all I'm requesting, no more than that. So you don't have to simplify the bottom. You can just leave it as 5x squared minus 2 squared. So I'm going to simplify the top by doing my double distribution. So if I do the first one, I have 20x to the 4th times 5x squared, which would be 100x to the 6th. 20x to the 4th times negative 2 would be negative 40x to the 4th. And then I have to do the 2x times 5x squared, which would be 10x to the 3rd. And then 2x times negative 2 would be negative 4x. So that's the entire first part. Now I got to distribute the second part. And just make sure you're distributing negative 10x. So I got to distribute negative 10x to all three of these. So that's going to give me negative 40x to the 6, negative 10x to the third, and then negative 40x. And that is still all over 5x squared minus 2 squared. If you want to simplify it, you're more than welcome to. I'm just trying to get you guys to save on a little bit of work. Now the last part is just combining like terms, and then we should be good. So I got 100x to the 6, and I have negative 40x to the 6. I have, and I guess the only other things, yeah, so we have the 10x to the third and negative 10x to the third. It looks like those are just going to cancel out. So I'll just draw a line through those right away. And then we still have to combine. What other color can I use? I'll go back to blue. We can do negative 4x and negative 40x. So I'm just going to combine like terms now. I'm going to write them in the correct order. 100 minus 40 is just going to be 60x to the 6. I still have that negative 40x to the 4th. And it looks like negative 4 and negative 40 is going to give me negative 44x. And again, that is all over 5x squared minus 2 squared. So these ones are a little bit more complicated than what we did yesterday. Just a little bit more complicated. But as you guys can see, all the math that we're doing is math that we've been doing since, I mean, we're going back to Algebra 1. It's just making sure that you guys understand the process. The only new math is obviously the derivatives that we started last week. Okay? So that's all I got for exercise number 4. Exercise number 5 is going to be very similar. It's actually going to be a little bit shorter than what we just did. But number 5 has negative exponents. So I know some of you guys have gotten okay with the negative exponents, but I just want to go over it once again just to make sure everybody's good. The beginning part of this process is still going to be exactly the same. I'm going to split up the top and I'm going to split up the bottom. So I have f of x is going to be x to the 4th plus 6. And then I also have to find the derivative of that f of x, which this one's a little bit easier than what we did up top because all we have to do is bring the 4 and multiply it out front. And then we should have 3 left for the exponent. Be careful when you guys do g of x because when you do that derivative, like I said, we have that negative exponent. So the same rule still applies. Oops. I don't know why I'm putting negative 1. I'm thinking negative exponent, so I'm just continuing with the trend. When we go to do this part, there's no more 3 because that's x to the 0. When we do the negative 4x to the negative 4, we're bringing down the negative 4. So negative 4 times negative 4 would be a positive 16. But make sure you're subtracting 1 from the exponent. A lot of you guys will start working fast and you're going to say that's negative 3. But if you do negative 4 minus 1, it's really going to be negative 5. So just be very careful with that. It can change your entire answer by just changing that exponent by a negative 1. So now we're just doing that crisscross method that we talked about the other day. Actually, it's first derivative times the top part. And then this way. I guess it doesn't really matter which order you cross multiply in. So I'm going to have 4x to the third times 3 minus 4x to the negative 4. And then the second part, again, I like putting the monomial out front. So I'm going to say 16x to the negative 5 first. And we're going to multiply that by x to the 4th plus 6. Again, because this is the quotient rule, we are going to subtract those. And then the only other step that you have to add on for the quotient is make sure that you divide the entire thing by what the denominator was squared. So from here, it's going to be just like exercise number 4. We're just going to simplify the top, combine like terms, and call it a day. So I'm going to distribute 4x to the third times 3 is just going to be 12x cubed. 4x cubed times negative 4x to the negative 4 is going to be negative 16, and it's going to be x to the negative 1 because it's a positive 3 minus 4. The next one, again, be careful. This is saying that we're distributing negative 16x to the negative 5. So I have to make sure I distribute the negative with it. So the first part's going to be negative 16x to the negative 1 again, because it's negative 5 and a positive 4. And then 6 times 16 is going to be 6. It should be negative 96x to the negative 5. Okay. So now, again, that is all over what we had on the bottom, and now we're just combining like terms. So if we combine like terms, it looks like the only thing that's going to combine are those negative 16s. And if we combine those negative 16s, I don't want to do it in red. I'm going to have 12x cubed. A negative 16 and a negative 16 is just going to be a negative 32. And then we still have the 96x to the negative 5. All over that denominator. And that right there would be the derivative using the quotient rule. So quotient rule normally has a couple more steps than the product rule, but they're very similar to each other. Okay? So if you guys have any questions with it, you know you can email me, remind, whatever you guys need to do. Homework are these 6 questions. I will tell you guys right now, the ones that are going to probably be a little bit longer are going to be number 4 and number 6, because there is a trinomial on the top of both of those. But all the other ones are going to be a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but the steps aren't going to be as extreme. Okay? So if you have any trouble, let me know. Make sure you guys turn them in. I have not sat down and graded all of the Math 12 assignments yet. I just spent about 2.5, maybe 3 hours doing all the Algebra 2, with Power School being down for almost the last week. And then I just got an email saying Power School just went down again. So hopefully I'll be able to get through the Math 12 stuff tonight, but most likely I'll start grading it tomorrow, and I'll send you guys an update on Remind where you guys are at. Okay, so go enjoy the nice weather. It's like 70 degrees outside. I'm going to go grill with my wife and have Archie go play in the backyard. So I hope you guys all have an awesome evening, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.